It was 9 p.m., the clock read 9:03. The withered man sat rocking, there was no one else to see. The old man was a widower, he had outlived his 4 kids. He commit his life to NASA and he was running out of bids. The man sat there in his bland-faced chair while his bland-faced watched the television. He'd been to Mercury, Mars, and Venus. The man wasn't afraid by any mission. The kind of man who hardly grinned, he was modest over his pride. He'd never caught his second wind, and he'd contemplated suicide. The old astronaut in his old chair went up to wash his face. He lied down to bed, thoughts raced through his head, and he dreamt of returning to space. He'd fly to Uranus, the place that was famous for nobody touching its skin. He slept with intention, his due intervention, and he slowly attained a grin. The next morning arose, he dressed down to his clothes, and he took a taxi straight to DC. As he left the cab, he paid off the tab, and he marched under the marquee. The man met with the director, showed his plan from projector, and who was the director to disagree? The man was a hero, the director is zero, and so he agreed to the plea. It was set in a week, the 7th planet he'd seek, the day couldn't arrive too soon. When the morning arose, the man jumped into his clothes and took off like a dish with a spoon. He hit the button and took off to flight. The old man's family was in sight. Ever deeper into space, a degree of familiarity came with his place. Passing the planets, he counted down 3, then came the 7th that he could finally see. As the planet drew near, the man's heart began racing. The rocket didn't steer, so the man's chair began pacing. When the rocket would shake, was it a mistake? Surely the two would collide. But the man did relax, he remembered the facts, and the man let the plan reside. Just within range, the plan soon would change as the aged astronaut passed out. The rocket wrapped around and drifted earthbound, and the ship had taken a new route. The man later awoke to reality's sick joke as the rocket head back toward the earth. He knew he'd stay awake when the rocket would shake, for he'd make sure to crash for what it was worth. As the earth was in range, the sight was not strange, and the astronaut took a hold of the wheel. The ship tossed and turned, the engines had burned, and the system began to squeal. The man looked straight, it was the sea. He closed his eyes and he felt free. There the rocket broke apart. The technology was fairly smart. An empty rocket had hit the sea. A parachute had taken he. The withered man brisked onto a wave and floated off into a cave. The astronaut swam out and drifted inland. The astronaut did pout when he stopped onto some sand. So the astronaut walked up a path. He did poor math, he'd lived today. There the man looked into town. He searched up and down. There was no one at play. For you see, when the man did flee, pollution had killed all life. The man tried to die, but his plan went awry, and now the man has no family, friends, or wife.